right, thanks for staying with us. Now, while the Nigerian Constitution provides for gender equality and non-discrimination, women continue to suffer injustice and marginalization. This is often as a result of discrimination laws or discriminatory laws, religious and cultural norms, gender stereotypes, low levels of education, and disproportionate effect of poverty on women. Now, recent statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics that Nigerian women do not enjoy equal access with men in decision making and power sharing came as no surprise. This cuts across board, and the film industry has a huge role to play in the portrayal of women in terms of leadership, gender bias, and so on. So how can we begin to shape the narrative and project women in a different light in the eye of the media? That's our conversation for today. Please, let's hear what you have to say quickly. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-4663. I want to bring in our guest in a second, right? Film industry. I want to say that, first of all, I think a lot has changed in the film industry. Because if you look at now recent movies, there's Abiola Craig, I think there's what's her name, Kemi Adetiba, there's
Bolale
there's Bolale Peters,
there's Biodun Stephen.
Yes. So I think a lot of women are now coming into the industry, right? So it'll be interesting to understand what the gender challenges will still be in the film industry in Nigeria. That's my thoughts, but quickly let me hear your thoughts.
About the gender challenges, I think for us, having watched Anikulapo Kuti, there was a bit of nudity that we're not used to. I'm just speaking about.
But that doesn't have to do
Let
with
me
gender.
relate it to gender.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
You know, normally when we make films, we tend to expose the woman, but protect the man's privates. This time around, they expose the man and the woman. So to me, for me, in that millisecond, I felt we were getting somewhere. Not that we tend to have nudity in Nigerian movies, but the fact that they did it equally made me understand.
There was equality there.
There was equality. I get my point.
Okay, so I think for me, I would be very interested in understanding how, if there are any ethical issues around, gender inequality in the film industry.
All right, so let me bring in our guest. Ego Boyo is a producer, actor, founder, Temple Production and Temple Films. Now, she is a multi-talented creative, popularly known for her role as Anne Hastrop in the early 1990s soap Checkmate. She was the 60th president of the International Women's Society, and she was also the Global Rights Ambassador for Global Rights Nigeria, whose work focuses on combating sexual violence against women. I mean, she's held different positions as board chair in different organizations, and we're really honored to have her with us in studio, live and direct. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to say first of all that you seem to be very ageless. I don't understand.
Yes.
I was still sucking my mommy's breast when I was watching you on TV.
You look the same as you did in Violated.
I'm telling you, and it's like you've not aged a bit. Thank you so much for
one of
coming.
your greatest fans, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
When they said you were coming today, it was almost as if I was getting a boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
I was so excited. I was like, oh.
Well, it's lovely to see you all again. And
So you said, is that your bones are ashy?
Oh, yes.
I feel it.
Yeah. My bones are feeling the age, yes. Yeah.
But I mean, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
You have been in the film industry for God knows how many decades. Like
Yes.
you've just been there on screen and mostly recent times off screen, doing a lot of background work and all of that. So I mean, gender is one subject that I mean every part of the world can relate to, because especially, I mean, I was watching, I think one of Reese with the Spoons quote that Omolola had shared with me about how she went into a room after she auditioned, she did a fantastic job, and the next thing they say, okay, can she wear a particular kind of cloth? And she was asking, how does the cloth relate to the role I'm supposed to? So I mean, these are things that we see when it comes to gender, that every time it seems like, a particular sex, which is always all the women folk, we are always, put in a certain kind of box and all of that. So maybe you should help us break down, if we say that there's gender inequality rather in the film industry, what does it look like for the layman that doesn't understand? Because you live, you breathe film industry, so you know where the real core issues are.
I think the real core issues, I think, would be in terms of how we're represented on screen, which is something that you just touched on when you said she was asked to put on a certain kind of clothing. In the industry, in Nollywood, there has been a lot of great strides. As you said, from the early 90s to now, there have been a lot of women that are now holding positions of power in the industry. They're producers, they're directors, they're making decisions about writing and what subjects. So there has been quite a lot of progress made in that direction. But I think one of the issues is still that the films are still not giving women or characters, women's characters, the agency that they have. They're not representing the women that we have today, the women that we aspire to be, the women that we admire in real life. We're still very much in, there's still a lot of characters that are very much in the past, and a lot of stereotypes that remain in our films. So I think it is in that sense, because the men always seem to be very real in terms of real, as in real today. They are doing very well, progressing in their careers. You know, they sort of reflect the society. But the women don't seem to reflect the society in the same way.
Absolutely.
They seem to still be stuck in the past in a lot of the films. So I think that would be where I would say that inequality still exists.
It's so interesting. Sorry, I'll let you come in, because I just finished a project on, I did a production for like a season, 13 episodes of a show called the Leading Woman Show. And part of what we talked about, one of the topics of the show was the media portrayal of women, right? And you know, it's so interesting how, in fairness, right, we haven't seen the portrayal of somebody like an Okonjo-Iweala and all of that. We still see scripting storylines that still say that a woman needs to be dependent on somebody, on the man, or wait for a sugar daddy to come, you know, like, I mean, so sometimes when I see those kind of very horrible storylines, you know, it just turns me off to not even want to watch the film industry. So I'm just wondering, is it possible to start to really change that narrative? Because it seems like those are the kind of storylines, right, that they will tell you that it is what the people want, that these filmmakers are just replicating or regurgitating the minds of the people. But I choose not to believe that's true.
I mean, it's you can say that, but then the society does not reflect only one thing. There's a variety of women. There are different types of women doing different things. So while, yes, there's certain women that perhaps are, you know, dependent on their men and waiting to be, you know, some sugar baby or whatever. That cannot be all. The wicked stepmother, which is mother-in-law, which is one of the recurring themes. But there are also a lot of women that are professional. There are a lot of women that are doing great stuff in work. There are a lot of women that are breadwinners. Absolutely. There are a lot of women, you know, there are very positive representations of women in life that we can take as well. So I think that it would be lazy to just say that, you know, I'm reflecting the society and this is how women are. You need to represent what actually exists, and then you also want to represent what you want to see. So we're trying to change, because, you know, media, TV, film is a huge influence on not only young people, everybody. And yes, it reflects society, but so the society you want to see, you should actually have positive representations within the films, so that people then start thinking, okay, we're trying to make a cultural shift away from these stereotypical you know, labels that women have been put under, and we need to see those things. You want to see the Okonjo-Iwealas. There are quite a few of those kind of women, professional women. Absolutely. We want to see more of that, and they exist. So we need to start writing with a great deal of being more intentional in our writing, and being very deliberate about what it is that we want to achieve in terms of changing the perceptions that the public have about women.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and I think my mind got shifted a little with the way the conversation went. First of all, we've had recently women being the main act, like a king of boys. But growing up, I remember the movie Efunsheto, where she was so powerful. This is what King Woman is doing now. Or Woman King, the one that Viola Davis is. We had one in the days of the Ogun days and co. That was Efunsheto, and it was major. And then we had Iago as well, even though they were both Yoruba. Like you said, What I find very troubling, and in case I want to audition tomorrow and you say because of what I said you are not giving me the job, just take it as the truth. The characters they create for these our women are totally unrealistic. Like the women in King of Boys, I would say nobody dresses like that in Nigeria on a daily basis, please. I mean, it's a bit sensational. And I don't think we have to be a caricature of productions just to get people to come into the cinemas. And Diego, with everything that you've achieved in life, I don't think you wear those kind of outfits on a daily basis coming down the steps with those turbans. It's not realistic.
So you are trying to say that they need to make it a lot more relatable with what we have.
Which is exactly what she said. But aside from that one, which is my point, this thing that they keep talking about, the women in the industry always seem to have money and the men never seem to have any. Could you tell us what your what's the English? What you see, what your view, your perspective is as to why that may be the case. Although we say that it is, you know, it's Olosho status is what most people assume, that is women just getting favors from men that makes them so rich, because their counterparts, the male counterparts, don't build houses, don't buy cars at the same pace and rates that the women do it. That is an inequality that I want to explain.
Okay, Irene, I can't speak on any particular person because I don't know what you know anybody is doing. But when you consider that there's such a great number now of women in film, I saw some figure like 50-60% of films, you know, women are in film, in different categories, from acting all the way up, from directing upwards. And a lot of people are doing a lot of work. People are getting very good deals.
Yes.
And so they're making more money. So I'm not, yes, the endorsements and all of that. So I can't, you know, I don't know how, I can't speak on any specific.
No, we're not going to mention specific.
No, not even mentioning. I can't, you know, unless you have some insider information. From what I can see is from people actually doing work. We've had a great deal of people really having very good deals in the last decade. Very great deals.
Endorsements and things
there have
like
been
that.
lots of great endorsements, and people are just working, flat out working. And then I wanted to, what you mentioned about the characters in those old films, and that's so true, that although there were stereotypical characters, portrayals of women, but we did have some strong female characters that, and we do have a very strong matriarchal society. We did. So we had women that were warriors, women that were protectors, you know. In my own case, I was lucky to be in a series where the main character was a very strong female who was in the boardroom, who was a businesswoman. So, but the thing is, even with that, there's still that aspect of the series where Anne had to be fulfilled by
having
a relationship, because you know society just cannot wrap their heads around the fact that this is a successful woman, so she must be aspiring to have a husband and have children.
It doesn't always follow.
Yes, it doesn't follow, and we've seen that, but this is what we've been raised on. And so these are some of the stereotypes about film that we also need to break, because that is not the setup for a lot of people. Some people don't have that kind of, you know, experience. Their life is not that experience. There are women that are career women who are not married and do not want to be married. There are people that are women that just want to do the work and are doing it very well. And, you know, they're just a whole lot of women doing great things, and we can represent that more in our films.
Let me come to you.
I think she just said everything I want to say, and I like the fact that you said that outside the fact that you know, when they write the stories, it's not enough to just project what is happening now. You know, you also want to write stories for what you would like to see. So I'm very interested, again, because I'm very particular about women issues. I want to see stories that, you know, talk about inheritance, because that's a serious issue in a place like Nigeria. You know, you want to look at what you just said, marriage, parenting. It's a whole lot. So when we have stories that evolve and give women the semblance of saying it's okay
And it's possible.
It is okay. It's not, you don't have to be so steeped in the cultural biases. It is okay to be this. It is okay. I think stories like that would go on to change the narrative, and then to give more women permission, you know, to get to
who they want
light.
to be.
Yeah,
absolutely. I was going to say that, you know, for certain things, I mean, it's very sweet, you know, for you to talk about writing the ideal for stories.
Yes.
And people, I'm sure people must have told you this thing, hey, because you have money, you are not looking for money. For us that we're doing film, so because I've seen a few of Angego's movies, like it will be like.
And it is project that we're just educating you. I don't need you to.
I don't think Auntie had planned to make money from this film. She's doing this film. No, but she did this film out of passion, and she wants to send a message because that's what filmmakers will tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, like the movie went to watch the screening, the silence for him that they didn't say anything throughout. When we finished watching the film, I said, okay, you know, because everybody will be wondering, like. Your films are deeper than just because you want to produce a film. There's something that you want to, you know, a message you want to pass on with your films. And somebody will say, "Now, person way don't your bellyful, go do that kind of." Because if you look at the typical filmmaker in Nigeria, most of them are very, very particular about what sells, and because sensations sell. All of these narratives still sell. You know, the grass to grace story, the prince and the what's it called, the pauper, those kind of stories still sell.
So
yes, we want to paint an ideal, but they will tell you that if we do that story, how many people would wake up and say they want to go and buy tickets to watch the movie, or you know, how far would it go?
But the thing is, now more than ever, we have multiple
streaming platforms,
platforms that your film can go to. There are festivals, you can go the festival routes. You can go the route of, you know, going straight to a streamer. Your film is so great, they want to buy it and, you know, put it on one of the streaming platforms.
Yes.
And so it's not necessary that everyone will go to the cinema. And even if you go to the cinema, is there any there's no guarantee that you're going to, you know, be sold out, make all that money. So there are just various ways that film, and sometimes film is just for educational purposes. So it all depends on what it is. I saw a film recently, it's about 15 minutes, about marriage actually, Bride Price, and it was sponsored by an organization in, I don't know, one of the countries. And it was just a small snippet of what happens in, you know, negotiating a bride price in a village and all of that. It was for educational purposes. So the films are for so many different reasons. They're there to reflect society, but it's also to teach, to, you know, hold up a mirror and all of that. So they're just very different. There are many different ways why
absolutely. Let's take a very short break. When we come back from the break, I'd like Mary to join the conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're discussing gender equality in the film industry, and we have with us Ego Boyo. Now, please remember you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp 081-803-4663. You can also tweet at us at PlusTvAfrica1 with the hashtag #WadeShow. All right, so before we went on the break, I mean, this conversation, I would like to leave with something really substantial. A lot of things that I mentioned earlier has changed. Now we don't have the stories of sleep with me for you to get a role, right? The ladies are really just doing it out of their own. It's not like because we have,
no longer under duress.
It's no longer under duress like the times where, you know, your generation of first time filmmakers, where we heard a lot of stories around you had to sleep with a director and all of that. So all that
you
part.
said that wrong.
What?
Sorry, I have to correct you.
Which one?
Yeah. The way you said it came out wrong.
Which one?
What you're trying to say is, in the time when the film industry started and we started seeing your younger generation, the perception.
That's what.
No, the way you said it was as if that's how
it
was. Isn't that how it came out?
It was, yes.
That's how it came out.
That's how it came out. So
the perception was almost like for everybody to get a lead character in the movie, I mean females rather, to get the lead role, the perception was they had, and there were stories that flew around at that season, you know, that period. But those things have changed now. So if we want to start to make a headway in the film industry, what would be, like, you know, the top 3 things, or maybe top 5 things that you were saying that has to be put in place? Because there's a part of finance that you talked about. I think I read some part where you were talking about how, you know, there's somewhat disadvantage when it comes to filmmakers and funding for women and all of that. So what would be your top 5 things that you need to put in place, at least to just give us that level of leverage, you know, as women in the film industry?
I think that since you mentioned funding, I was actually, I mean, you know, the film festival is on, and I was the Afro Film Festival, and I listened to a very interesting panel actually talking about gender as well, and what they were doing for women, financing for women, and there are quite a number of, you know, funds available, which they, you know, informed us about, available for women. So that is the work in progress. And then there are quite a lot of opportunities, capacity building for women in film, because a lot of women are trying to get into the less traditional roles for women, especially with crews, things like, you know, directors of camera, gaffer, all of that. So there's training for them. So some of these things are already happening. There's training for women across the board, for anybody in film who is interested in film across the board, acting, directing, everything. So those are already happening, which is great. I think for me it would be being more intentional, as I said, about, you know, how we portray women in film, because film has such a power, and we need to utilize that power effectively, and we need to change, or start to change, the perceptions that the way we have portrayed women. We have to start to make those changes. Small changes, but eventually they become bigger changes, and we need to do that, because we need to have proper positive representation for our children, for young people, and they're watching films, and they're getting not only films, TV series, even in the media, advertisements. There's still that whole mom and dad, the 2 kids, mom is in the kitchen cooking, dad is watching TV. You have to,
mommy can be president.
Mom can be also watching TV, and maybe dad is in the kitchen with mom getting the food ready. Yes. You know, it can be so many things, but rather than just being stereotypical, we have to start to make a few little changes to the perception of women. And, you know, it's in the writing, it's in us making the decision that there's something that needs to be done.
Okay.
And
Mary, then come to you. Go ahead.
Mary doesn't want you to come to her.
I think, like she has said, a change can happen. I mean, the stereotype is already standard, you know. It's a female is kitchen, learn how to cook, do all of that, while the male, you know, is the hardworking. And so funny how subconsciously in my head I'm just thinking, please let me get married now. Let me actually get married, and because like even in the corporate space, in the corporate ladder, it's almost like you're even not giving too much or too many tasks, because like
you end up in the other
you end up in your husband's house, you know. So don't do this. But it's actually changing. I'm seeing a change in my generation, because now, I mean, the men, I watched my dad cook, you know. My dad made meals for us, and that was fine. And, you know, in the TV industry, you know, watching TV, my mom still has that fear as well, you know. You're going into the TV space, hope nobody is doing this. But I talk her through that. It's fine. The truth is, if you train your child well and you stand up, she's not going to have to or need to sleep with a
compromise
man,
her integrity,
you know,
to get on.
Yes, it might be tempting and stuff, you know, but those values are very much instilled, you know, from childhood. I would say, even as someone who is doing sales, a lot of people will say you're doing sales in the luxury industry, and majority of my clients are the males. Even we have female actors who we mainly use for influencing, you know, I mean, they come to buy, but they most times the spending power, you know, for luxury is with the men, you know. So either the man is buying something, you know, for her, you know,
so you just
for himself,
just explain the problem. But let me hear like this question.
So to support you in your industry, I think what is not for her. Men know that when you look at a man, what we're watching out for: your wristwatch, your shoes, your belt. Before we get let me
drop that subject.
We're not just. I was talking about equality and non-equality. I mean equality rather. There's a particular producer, and just because I'm not a lawyer and I don't want to get sued, I will be careful about not mentioning names. But I've seen 2 projects that she's done, and she's beginning to promote excessive nudity of the women, and she holds such a strong power in that industry that I personally am beginning to take offense, because if you have this influence and you have these opportunities and you have the Netflixes and all of them giving you contracts to bring your material on a global platform, and this is what you're taking us back to, where the women's breasts have to be shown. Auntie, I'm sure you know the person I'm talking about.
I don't.
You do. Where the women's breasts have to be shown and their body really has to be shown. The women that we say are in control now, and we're challenging to start changing the narrative by writing better stories, writing better scripts, are the ones recently who are still doing what we're trying to walk away from.
See, if you're talking about age restriction, nudity that is for no reason, then that is different.
Yes.
But if you're talking about a film perhaps that is set in the past,
that has to do, like South Africans were not half naked, so it's not a big deal.
So, you know, it
this
just depends on
for no reason, and it's been done more than once.
Well,
like you said,
you can't say it's
let me tell you why.
Let me explain. You cannot say it is nudity for no reason. If I'm supposed to portray a prostitute, for goodness sake, I would portray a prostitute, and
so
I
it
have to.
For no reason.
It cannot be for no reason. There has to
tell you that it's for no reason, and I stay with it. You just said right here that Reese Witherspoon was in a movie, and they told her to wear a particular outfit, and she said, what effects would it have on the role? That nudity that I'm talking about, just because I don't want to get sued, I won't mention, had no impact.
Okay, let's move away from that.
Inequality.
My final question is around funding.
Yes.
Because I know that there are funds available. So how do we start to get people that have the right stories, the right narratives? I mean, this project that I did for the Leading Woman show was powered by the National Endowment for Democracy, because they tied it nicely to the vision of the body. So they funded the project, fully funded, right? So how do we start to get people that have great content, great stories and all of that, push, you know, and how do they position themselves to get those kinds of funds that we then now, because sometimes these narratives can only be pushed if there are funds available, right? So how do we start to get that happening?
I think you've already said part of it. You were approached or something. I think a lot of people, you know, you just really have to keep your ears open and see what is out there. Thankfully, we have the internet. There's a lot of information out there about what the funds are for and what they will support. So really, it's for people to, you know, just do the research, find out what is out there. And if you go to, you know, festivals like this, then you also meet a lot of people that are, a lot of organizations that have come and they're looking to fund projects. So you can have those sort of conversations where it's really you know, taking the agency, finding these things and finding what is available. And
So what are you doing?
I mean, I'm doing a lot of different things. I'm working on, you know, my projects for 2023, hoping to make a documentary and a film, feature film. And yes, we're all looking for funding. But you know what I wanted to say when you were talking about the men having the power, the buying power is in their hands. One of the ladies said something that was so interesting. She said a lot of the times, the women, because we were not socialized in that way, as you said, you sit with your mom, you're taught to cook and knit and all of that. And the boys are, you know, they're put in these social situations where they're interacting and networking, even from a very early age.
Yes.
And a lot of the financial literacy and co is in men are trained in that way. And for a lot of women, they're not. So it's something that we also need to do. I would say that one of the things would be financial training in film for not only women, for all of us. Because a lot of people are creatives, and handling money and finding money and knowing how to is not something that comes to us easily.
Second nature, yeah.
So I would say that kind of, you know, focused training on, teaching us just to be,
I think
just
there
a
was
few pointers, and then you then, of course, take it on. Yeah.
There was a recent show I watched. I don't remember the name, and it was like a stock market kind of thing.
Okay.
And then there were young interns, and then this girl was fired. And I was happy to see such a thing, because usually, it would be a guy. And seeing her face all the things like a young person, a young girl would face, in a professional environment where you have older bosses that are men,
and this is the reality.
Stuff. It was very relatable, and I like that.
Yeah,
so that did teach me a lot. To say, okay, you know what? Me as a lady, I have a female boss, executive director, and that really empowers me. To be honest, so I'm always like, as a female, I can do it as well. So we're getting there.
So do we see this change really happening?
It is happening.
It is. It's not going to be drastic, but I can say that it's definitely happening.
Yeah.
It is.
It is happening. It's a gradual thing. It's not going to overnight change, but it's for us to be, as I said, intentional about how we want to get there. And it's in these little ways, just tweaking some of our stories and being very aware that just however you portray people, however you portray women, is what this is what the society is embracing as okay. It's not changing because we're saying these women are this, that, or the other. And if we want to change, we have to be the change we want to see. We have to make it happen. So
okay, so let's take comments. Mary Lady. Let's take some comments.
Well, let me boldly say, somebody sent a comment. And who has sent
that is not.
Are you sure?
Yes, please take the comment.
Because
okay, let me take the comment. You take the other one. Good evening, my dear beautiful sisters. What are you saying? Gender equality in the film industry. The industry has come of age, and that is why things that happened before should not happen again. The movies we watch these days should be an avenue where we learn and correct ourselves. It should not always be what we want to watch, but what we are supposed to watch. Sister Wall made mention of the women sleeping with producers and directors to get roles. It should not be so. That should they should wait for their time to reach stardom. I have been a fan of your guest Ego Boyo years back during the time of Checkmate when she played the role of Anne Hatchrock. Nice to have her on the show. My name is Daniel Ilo, your always regular fan. Then you have a comment. Okay, so we're wrapping up. Your wala is plenty this evening. Take your comment quickly.
I should take which
one?
The
second comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Inequality. Good morning. Oh, he said good morning. Good evening, ma'am. I humbly trust you and your wonderful family are doing fine. Sorry, I'm one of your biggest fans. I love watching Ways. Please take care. No name. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're wrapping up the conversation. The time is fast spent. So why I asked that, is it possible for this change to happen? There's a new trend that is going on right now in the industry where, I remember someone saying that she had to go and alter her body to get a role. Yeah, it's a big issue. That's why I didn't want to bring it before. But let's just see if you can touch on it for 2 minutes, right? She had to alter her body. A particular movie that portrayed like a really what's it called, like a goddessy kind of look and all of that. She had to go do a surgery to get that, the hourglass, the BBL that she's ready.
There's underwear to make you look at
wait. So, and you remember our former makeup artist, Chinelo? Her friend flew in from Enugu. She's an actress. Flew in just to come get the BBL done. Because now the complaint is that in the industry, if you are not a certain kind of, as a woman, it's difficult for you to get roles. So if we have those kind of things, I'm wondering, how do we really, bring this, what's it called, the challenges and the issues that the female folk have in the industry? How will we put an end to it when we still have those kind of things? You can look at all your colleagues. Antiago, you are different. Yeah, in a class of your own. Most of the young generation actresses right now, they've altered their body. A lot of them are going in for surgery, doing all sorts of things to have the perfect hourglass shape, have the perfect skin, and have all of the perfect whatever. they are not depiction of what reality is. Nobody has a bulging tummy anymore. Everybody has flat tummy. Everybody has hourglass, all of that. So how do we now change the narrative?
Is that to do with making films or a personal choice?
I think it has to do with making films, because now it seems like you are not pretty, you are not attractive if you are not looking in a certain way.
I'm not sure that is correct. I'm hearing this
for the first
time.
Okay.
Yes, that people are relating to the film industry, because a lot of people across different industries are altering their bodies, and it's down to the world we are in now, and the fact that social media has portrayed certain body types as the attractive body types. It goes beyond just media. It's even, well, it is media because it's in the social media space. But it's not to do with acting. I haven't heard that anybody has been told
I'll tell you
to go and specifically alter their body, because as you said, there's actually underwear. That is what a costume person can do. You can build a body. You know what I mean? So to tell somebody to go and do life-threatening surgery, that I have not heard. That is a bit much.
The concept of equality in your beautiful discussion on your topic of gender equality in the film must be defined and clarified. Equality is not the same as sameness. What's that? Equality does not exist in the actual sense amongst humans, because even amongst men there is no equality. If women develop themselves professionally, they can stand with men in any part of the world. I think I agree with the last part. Yes, which was what you were saying about trainings and all of those retooling and all of that. But I think we've had a fantastic conversation.
Yes, we have.
Thank you so much, Egoboyo. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
We had fun. Even though somebody wants to.
Before
we go, ensure you follow us on Instagram at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further. Drop a comment, and more importantly, follow all our engagements on social media. Like, share, invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. Now, if you missed our quote for the day, here it is again, right? Just, I am not the woman president of Harvard. It's a simple thing. Stop calling people female CEO, female this. She's just the president of Harvard, right? Enough of when a woman is in the position of high authority, you refer to her as a female boss. She's just the boss. So we take it like that. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.